Thumbs up. We've seen a lot of fits and starts because of trade policy, the war in Iran. There are 5 conflicts happening in the Middle East right now.
Yeah.
The Suez Canal effectively has been running at 10 to 20% efficiency for 4 years. So cargo has really started to move into that Southern California gateway over this time because it didn't have that many options. But, you know, Tom, compared to COVID-19, when we saw those ships backed up and the piles of cargo,
things are moving normal.
We've moved more cargo during this time period than we did during the peak of the peak then, and not one ship has been backed up.
Are your union members happy? Are they working triple overtime kind of boom
Hey, I see
economy?
some of these guys at the Elks Club for happy hour. They're getting a lot of hours on the job. They're working. They're throwing the cargo. They're hustling. Yeah, they're the best in the business.
We're like, yeah, you know, it's like overtime.
Well, I love that Gene's making comparisons to what the market was like at the height of the pandemic and how improved, how much more efficient it's running. I mean, talk to us a little bit about those lessons you learned from the pandemic. Are they paying off now?
Yeah, Damien, 2 things. Number one, we had to be humble, lean on each other, kind of open up the books a little bit and see where it went wrong. And it was probably a little bit of communication, lapse, folks doing things on their own. Nobody trying to do anything sinister, but everybody was out there just trying to edge ahead for themselves. Second, the advent of technology, whether it's the truck reservation system, being able to see cargo 40 days before it lands on the shore of Los Angeles. All of that makes us smarter. Leaning on each other made us better.
You know, Tom, this is amazing because, you know, if you look at JP Morgan, a lot of these people and what they're talking about, what they got wrong here about the impact of inflation, of Hormuz, of Iran on inflation here in the U.S. is that the demand destruction is real. Like the way that the consumer has adjusted their demand patterns in order to adjust to the supply shock. Talk to us about what else you're seeing from the perspective of the consumer. Are you seeing volumes still continuing to expand? Are they, you know, kind of getting a little constrained here? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Damien, the example is happening right now. We saw small to middle-sized importers bringing in their cargo a little bit earlier than a traditional peak season. 2 main reasons. One, the temporary tariffs were expiring on July 24th. I know my price. I've got a window. I've got to speed the cargo to market. And then second, the fuel adjustment factors in the shipping industry lag by about 3 months. So they saw a day when that price was going to spike. Let me average my cost down, get as much product in as I can.
I look at this, Jane, and wrapped around it is, I think it's 80 different cities in Los Angeles. So in Los Angeles, it's like bigger than Rhode Island.
That's right.
Think.
88 cities in LA County.
And what's the state? You're such a great voice for an LA downtrodden billionaires tax. Everybody's moving to Austin, Texas, or they're moving up to the Central Valley, et cetera, et cetera. What's the real story of LA right now that you see?
1 in 15 working Angelenos have a job related to this port complex and supply chain.
Wow.
That's super powerful. We've got 20 million people that live in Southern California. So when we do all these imports, we got a lot of mouths to feed. We've got a lot of consumers. We also have the largest manufacturing base of employment in the country. 400,000 jobs in LA County that work for manufacturers. I think a lot of people don't know this. My father used to lecture me on this, like McDonnell Douglas and the rest of it way back, aerospace and all. Aerospace,
say it again.
Defense, 400,000
Atlanta
jobs.
Richfield.
Yeah.
You don't, Damien, you're not even old enough to remember Atlanta Richfield. But the bottom line is, did you just say it's the largest manufacturing base
of employment in the country? Wow. LA County.
You know, I have to ask you this, Gene, and I'm sorry to shift gears, but, you know, I haven't heard much about the rebuild since the wildfires hit Malibu and LA County. I mean, can you give us a little bit of insight as a local there? I mean, are we seeing people, you know, move back into that area? Are people building there again? Talk to us a little bit about that. The progress and the resolve are 2 different things. Folks absolutely want to get back into Altadena, to Pacific Palisades, and even the edges of Malibu that were burned so badly. But one thing that's real are the international and tariff policies. Softwood lumber that comes out of Canada, appliances that are made in the maquiladora areas of Mexico, steel with 50% tariffs, furniture and footwear are up 10% or more over last year. It's more expensive to rebuild. And then, of course, as you guys have reported, there's a gap between the insurance coverage and the rebuild cost, only exacerbated by tariffs.
Gene Seroka with us from Los Angeles, driving all over the port there. Love having him in with the flavor of Southern California. You grew up in like New Orleans. You were in school in New Orleans, which is humidity and heat. Now you're out in Southern California, which is, I guess, dry and heat, and it's getting hotter. discuss climate change as it affects your staff, the customers of your operation. It's getting hotter out in Phoenix over to LA, isn't it?
It sure is, Tom. And
you feel it.
I feel it. And the thing that we look at the most is in that harbor enclave at the Port of LA, we've got 260,000 residents in San Pedro, Wilmington, Harbor City, Harbor Gateway, and Watts. There are millions more that live along these key commerce corridors. We believe it's our job to bring that health risk down through reduction in pollution. We've reduced diesel particulate matter, tailpipe pollution, by 91% since we started our Clean Air Action Plan. Right. In 2006.
Jamie wants to get up on. I got to get this one question and then Damien take over.
Okay.
Gene, how do you respond to 45 tankers stuck in the Persian Gulf?
Now, having lived and worked in the Middle East for 5 years, Tom, I'm keeping up with my business contacts and lifelong friends that I made during my time stationed in Dubai. This is really tough because it's the crew members that are on these vessels that have been stranded now. We're in our 6th month of this war. And there are other conflicts happening throughout the region that have put an unbelievable amount of stress on these people that guide the ships and the supply chains they support. There's an adage in our industry. If your port gets shut down for a day, whatever the case may be, it takes about 3 days to catch up. Right. We're now 6 months into this war. Strait of Hormuz closed, open, really closed. It's going to take a long time, not only to get these ships back into rotation, but to repair the damage that's been done through this war-torn region and future-proof it.
You know, I'd love to ask you about why the Dodgers have just lost 6 in a row and whether or not you're worried about it. But, Gene, what I really will ask you is about El Nino and how you expect the port to adapt, to climate change, to rightly point out. I mean, Tom, I think you hit the nail on the head here. There's going to be some interesting dynamics. What are you expecting through the second half of this year if El Nino really does continue and it starts to even, get stronger here?
Well, this is not meant to be to the detriment of any other port. Ricardo Vasquez, my friend Katine, who runs the Panama Canal Authority, good friend, great businessman, he's now faced with some issues. Yeah. What we're doing is not taking his cargo. We're planning in the event he can't move as much product through his 3 locks in the canal. Mm-hmm. How do we prepare in Los Angeles to get ready? I see that just on the drawing board here, probably a 5% uptick in cargo because some of it will move to avoid any type of concerns in the supply chain. And we're working with our Harbor Trucking Association, Robert Loya, our terminal operators, our rail partners, and longshore labor to make sure, guys, down the pipe, we see a little bit of an uptick. Let's get ready with our skilled labor, land, and machinery to take that on. And if it doesn't happen, there's no shame in that, but we've got to have the preparedness based on these changes in supply chain patterns.
We welcome all of you across America and, of course, early morning Pacific Rim as well, from San Diego up to Vancouver, farther north. Good morning, Whistler, where I think it's almost 60 degrees. It's probably nicer. The way you choose to listen to us, thank you so much on Sirius XM. And, of course, good morning, 92.9 FM Boston, 99.1 FM Nathan Hager Radio Washington, and Bloomberg 1130. Jobs Day in about, I'm doing the math, 15, 16 minutes with a great lineup. But this is just a joy on a summer Friday to talk to Gene Seroka about the Pulse going north from the port. We have stereotypes here, but as you go up to San Francisco, up to Portland, Oregon, all that Carney and Canada's doing on their west coast, it's basically a booming, how many miles? I'm going to say 1,000 miles. Am I guessing?
Pretty close.
It's booming, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so are we. This Port of Los Angeles is in a period of time right now, Tom, where we've really lined up our commercial business. The relationships run deep across the supply chain, and the financial setting that we're in right now has never been better. We've got 160 capital improvement projects on our dashboard today.
Give us an example of that. Give us a capital improvement project.
One of the reasons I'm in New York this week, we just signed an agreement with the Newsom administration, California Governor Gavin Newsom's administration, to build a new bridge that traverses from the residential areas in San Pedro to Terminal Island. I'm here seeing banks and financial institutions
there we go.
to work on a P3 concept that's never been done before. We're really excited about this. We're also building a new cruise terminal that's being helped out by a number in the industry, including Carrick's and SSA.
Right.
And for the first time in a generation, we've got bids due in December for a brand new container terminal.
Okay.
The investment at the Port of LA is off the charts.
I'm sorry, the bridge has got to be the Tariq-Skubal Bridge.
Oh, my God,
It's
no.
just got to be.
Well, I just thought Gene was in town basically meeting with his colleagues at the Port of New York and New Jersey, like going golfing and outside of Port Elizabeth.
What's the state of our ports here? From 3,000 miles away.
Yeah, it's quite
What's the state of the ports here?
Beth Rooney runs the Port of New York and New Jersey. She is one of the best in the business, and these guys mean so much. You're within drive time of 2/3 of the American population with cargo coming in and out of this gateway. It is essential for the American economy.
I mean, do you regularly interact, obviously, with the Port of New York and New Jersey, but Port of Savannah, all these, I mean, do you guys kind of, like you rightly point out, preparing for some, some sort of something to happen with the Panama Canal, do you guys kind of all work together to make sure that logistically speaking, you guys are on the same page?
Yeah. And contrary to popular opinion, we all get along extremely well. Right. The pockets of cargo, the people that we serve, and the jobs that we have to do every day are so important to this country and our local communities. It is a really good band of folks that we have working together at ports in the U.S. today.
He has never said anything negative.
No,
in
it's
his
amazing.
life.
He's got the gift.
Busted your
He
chops.
has the gift. It's unbelievable.
What's a longshoreman make?
Oh, it depends. These guys out on the West Coast do really well, but this is one of the most dangerous jobs.
I know that. You didn't answer my
there is.
question. They're popping big six figures, right?
Yeah, they make a good middle class wage. Now you've got registered longshoremen about 9,000 in Southern California.
Gene, they make the middle class wage that this America was built on after World War II. These are guys making a legit middle class wage.
On average, north of $200,000 a year.
Why is it evaporated from America? Why have we lost the jobs that were middle class in Detroit, the jobs in New Jersey that were middle class, the ones you're living right now at the port?
Again, we look at Detroit. We do about $30 billion worth of business with the OEMs in Detroit and the tiered suppliers throughout the Ohio Valley. I've been impressed by what Michigan has done to modernize around the industry. You got 4 miles of electrical cable in cars now. The price being at $50,000 for a new vehicle is problematic, and it is symptomatic of what we've talked about with respect to inflation and trade policies. But the state of Michigan is behind its automotive industry.
One more?
If you're going to let me, I'm happy to ask.
Please.
Gene, what outside of meeting with banks and finance types and trying to get funding for for what are hopefully great investments, talk to us about demand for those meetings, demand for infrastructure investments. Are you seeing people willing to put their hands in their pockets in this environment with yields where they are to lend to you over the long term?
I do. And this week in New York, it's been super encouraging. The way folks look at it is, and for agencies like ours, we have to invest through budget cycles, economic cycles, and even election cycles now. To build this new bridge from stem to stern will be about 7 to 10 years. So we can't get to the point where we're wringing our hands today because things don't look exactly perfect. And that's what the big thinkers here in Manhattan were telling me this week.